Good morning, everybody. It's Jared with DayTraders FX. Hopefully, you guys are having a great day. Um, Another slightly slow week. Got a little bit of a slow week. These markets are really getting a little sideways on us, but we've got some great setups, which is awesome. Let's talk a little bit about what those are and kind of where we are and everything. First off, let's make sure we can see our current active open positions. We have a pending order on New Zealand CAD. We have a pending order on New Zealand Swiss. We have an active live filled order on Aussie New Zealand. Let's talk about all these and more. First of all, we saw the Euro interest rate news today. You can see some of the headlines here. If I go back to the Euro, some of the basic news here is Europe's going to look to keep interest rates low for at least the entire rest of this year and into next year, and that's not doing the euro dollar or the euro anything too many favors. So we've got that big sell-off right there. So they're kind of just staying the course. They're staying the course. I do like the euro though. I'm not watching too much outside of euro dollar on euro pairs. We've got a couple of interesting targets here and there. EuroCAD's got some stuff. We're always kind of keeping an eye on this Euro Swiss to kind of see where that one's going. But pretty choppy, pretty sideways. Nothing too exciting there. But we do see definitely this Euro dollar as a potential. So as this continues to drop, we're coming right back down into some of this old support right here. This low right here is November, and that's 12.17. We've talked about that, 112.17 area. And this is coming down nicely into it. You can see my board daily chart's a little messed up there, the moving average. But this is dropping nicely into support. So we're watching this pretty darn closely. I'm going to be looking for this in the next 30, 40, 50 pips, and I want to see how this plays out, what this does, what this gives us potentially, because we might have a decent little trade, like I said, down here in the 112, we'll just call it 112.20-ish area. It's coming down pretty hard. I want to see that reaction down there, but I think that's going to be an interesting spot to start looking at buying the euro. We don't want to rush anything. We definitely don't want to rush anything. But this is coming down pretty good. We've had some, a couple of choppy 1 hour bars here, but we have a nice little market imbalance right there, which we love, and that makes it very, very helpful for kind of better timing this entry. So now we've got a couple of targets up here that make this a much more viable trade. Market imbalance, and then we've got a daily pivot, and then we've hit everything else in the kind of that near-term area there. But market imbalance and daily pivot look very, very interesting. So this thing pushes down another 40-ish pips, and we could very well be looking for a trade here. I'm going to keep an eye on smaller time frames as well. I'm going to see if we get some bar counts, get something like that to help us kind of time the entry. And you can see right now it's, the 30-minute is the only thing that's kind of close. But that can be helpful in just saying, okay, here's a reminder that it's time to start getting into this thing. But for now, we're going to watch that support at 112.20-ish area and look for some movements back up to that market imbalance and that daily pivot. Looking good. Looking good. Okay, so that's euro dollar, and that's kind of the one of the few dollar things that we're watching. We'll talk about dollar CAD as well. Let's bump up here to some of the Aussie pairs. Now, remember, tomorrow is the U.S. and Canadian employment numbers. So we got to be a little careful about that. But we haven't seen a lot of big movement from the U.S. during employment numbers. We get a little spike, and then sometimes later in the day it kind of plays out bigger. Canada and Australia, countries like that are always open to some big movements during employment numbers. So we have Canada's tomorrow, and that should be exciting. So we'll be ready for that on some of these CAD pairs we're watching. But speaking of some of these CAD pairs, we have the Aussie CAD. Now, I've made no secrets about the fact that I really want to get into Aussie CAD. It's chop, chop, chop. We can see on so many of these charts that there's just been sideways movement galore, and I really want to trade the heck out of this Aussie CAD. But, we're looking at really a couple of months of just absolute sideways activity. But I love this pair, and I think it's going to be a great one to trade, and I won't even hesitate to get in at the news, around the news, whatever it needs to be. We've got these great targets on Aussie CAD up around, this market imbalance here, up around 9,500. We've got another market imbalance up around 9,600. We've got a monthly pivot up here around 9,650. These are all really, really good targets. Now, what I want to see happen, and I posted this chart already, is we have a market imbalance right here, and I want to see this pull back and hit that. And we also have a daily pivot here, and we have a market imbalance here. So that's why I kind of posted these. Market imbalance, daily pivot, market imbalance. So I want to get this thing down below, at the very least below 9,400 and start working its way towards this 9,350 before we start buying this thing. So it's got some room to go. If the news, and hopefully it does, I mean, I'm so hopeful that it does, if the news drives the Canadian dollar towards strength, oh baby, we're going to be buying the heck out of this tomorrow for that kind of movement up. Now, if this makes a big run down, over the next several hours, we'll also be buying it, even before the Canadian news. But I really want to get long in this lower area here. This is buy zone for me on Aussie CAD. So this is what I want to see. Is just getting down into that area. So we're holding off on Aussie CAD just a little bit. But I'm very hopeful that the news will get us down there. We've got another daily pivot here as well. Just get this down here a little bit lower and give us an opportunity to start buying this thing. 9,350 to 9,400 area. Our beloved Aussie New Zealand just seems to be going a whole bunch of nowhere. We've entered and exited this thing multiple times. The targets are still so great on Aussie New Zealand, and that's why we love it. We have a missed monthly pivot here that is so great. Excuse me. We have that, and of course we have a market imbalance, and of course we have a market imbalance and pivots and everything we need. This is going to be good, but it's going to be slow, and it has been slow. But we're going to get up there, and this Aussie New Zealand is a great little trade. We should have some great opportunities. So we're just sitting in it, staying the course, looking for additional opportunities. Now here's one that I think is going to become a pending order right now-ish. We have just tapped that monthly pivot. You can see that we've got, yes, we do have a weekly pivot down here. This is definitely something to keep in mind, 6,900. But we just came down and tapped that monthly pivot with some of these lows. I would have liked to have gotten an entry down there. That was nice. It was about 45, 50 pips lower. Not too bad. But I think this Aussie Swiss is ready for some movements back up towards this guy up here, which is this market imbalance. We have got the monthly pivot up here, which is around 71. We'll call this 71.40 area. And then we've got that market imbalance all the way up here at 72.30. And so if we can get into this on a little tiny bit of a pullback, I think I'm ready to rock and roll on this. So what we have is just a little short-term market imbalance here at 70.82. I think we're going to put an entry here about 70.85. Just 10 pips below, get a little bit of a pullback, and we're going to start buying into this thing, and we'll be ready to scale in and and get some hopefully some steady little pips on up there. So we'll add this pending order on Aussie Swiss. It looks really good. I think it should work out real nice for us. Speaking of pending orders, we have a pending order on New Zealand Swiss that has just not filled over and over and over again, and I'm kind of over it because it's taken so long. New Zealand Swiss, we'll talk about a couple of New Zealand pairs here real quick. New Zealand Swiss just kind of keeps, just we're looking for one more dip down here. I wanted to get this thing down and start getting a little bit closer to some of this support here. We just haven't been able to get there. And it's just consolidating around this area. I'm probably going to cancel the New Zealand Swiss order for now because we have another New Zealand order that we want to get into. So I think this one is going to go adios for us. for now. So New Zealand Swiss is probably going to get canceled, and we'll look to jump back into other New Zealand pairs in its place. So you can see here this New Zealand Swiss order. This is a cancel, never fill trade. So we're no longer trying to get into New Zealand Swiss. We're just kind of saying we'll check this one out later on. But fear not, we're always watching New Zealand details, and we have New Zealand CAD as a pending sell at 91.55. And remember, we do have CAD news tomorrow, and I'm aware of that, but I like this trade a lot. This is something that we have been watching for a pretty long while. We have to even go to the daily chart, I think, to really get some real appreciation for what this trade is. We have a market imbalance down here at about 89.25-ish area. We have another one down here on 8,800. We have daily, weekly, and monthly pivots galore all the way down here. Oil's making a pretty steady comeback. All these things are happening. And I think this is going to be a good opportunity for New Zealand Swiss, New Zealand CAD to really have, a run up into some of this resistance up here. And I'm targeting this monthly pivot's around 91.60. And that's the monthly pivot. So I'm trying to just get up there. That's at 91.60. I want to get as close to that as we can before we start selling, because we may need to get up into 92.50 area as well to really get a big double top in there. So I don't want to get too aggressive on this because it could still go against us 100 pips, but we have got some great lower targets, and I'm really excited about getting into this trade. You can see kind of some of the more immediate stuff too, weekly pivot, imbalances and daily pivots and so on down here. So we just got to get this just a little bit higher. We had a high of 91.25, 26, so we came just about 30 pips shy of our entry. Now it's down a few pips. But I'm hoping the CAD news will drive it up there, or anything will drive it up there, and we can get that entry at that higher price and be ready to really rock and roll on this trade. So I like New Zealand CAD a lot, and I think this is a great little opportunity to be getting in here. Now, so remember we've canceled New Zealand Swiss. Now let's look at this guy right here. This is just a good old bread and butter 15-minute trade. Really like these puppies a lot. I've been trying to hold off just a little bit because number one, we didn't quite have the bar count. Number two, we have all this news coming. But I like this New Zealand, this dollar CAD a good little bit. Now, on bar counts, we're looking for about 400 bars, right? And we're here just at the 368 area. So we're getting there. I want to see this thing run up. We've got some upper targets on this dollar CAD. You can see it a little bit better right here. And so we've got we have this weekly pivot that I think is going to be something worth keeping an eye on. That monthly pivot could offer a little bit of support, so we're just kind of keeping watch of that. But the weekly pivot is still unhit, and so that's one thing I'm keeping an eye on. But also, we have another market imbalance up here at 13600. So I think the closer we can get into 135, the better off we are, because this could make a run up into 136. The news could drive it up there. Anything could happen. And so that's where I'm saying let's see where this thing goes. Let's see what happens. Let's see how this plays out. But I would like to get into this 15-minute trade at a slightly higher price. Let's say 134, 70, 80, somewhere in there. I really want to get it up there just a little bit. We're still kind of in a lower bar count, and at least, at the very least, for those that are feeling aggressive and want to scalp this, I think this will be a great scalp trade. But let's get this up there a little bit more, maybe into the 134.50s kind of area before you start scalping it and trading it down. Okay, so that's something to keep a very close eye on is dollar CAD. Scalp this thing. It's going to be worth scalping. I think a longer term, more respectable entry for kind of the bigger profits will be, in the 134.70, 80 area, right up in that vicinity there. I think that'll be a better longer term trade, and I think we can target at least this little market imbalance right here, which is around 133.90. So we could get 60, 70, 80 pips out of this thing, depending on where our entries are. but I think we can start scalping this from about 134.50 or so. Scalping sells. Okay, that's a lot to say, but hopefully that makes sense for everybody. And I think that's what we should be looking for here on dollar CAD. Okay, so we have a lot of pairs to look at. Pause this, rewind it, review it. There's a lot to talk about there, but there you go, guys. And I'll have more updates coming. Thanks, everybody.